Well, okay, that brings us up to the date on the news. But I think for the second half of the show, I'd now like to run it back, Tenet style. Got to go back in time. And I think it would, it would behoove us to just do a little reminiscing on some of the things that have happened this year, and if we've had any new perspectives or memories to share. So, January 2020. Iranian General Qasem Soleimani killed by a U.S. drone strike. That was on January 3rd. He was killed by a U.S. drone missile while he was visiting Baghdad as an official guest of the Iraqi government. And, that one, I remember when that happened, I got scared shitless that, that was going to kick off, World War III between us and Iran. But, that was scary as fuck and still, one of the worst things America did this year. But, no war so far, but there's
so insane because that was like the first time I was like, ooh, this wouldn't. I wasn't like, oh shit, we're gonna go to war with Iran, but I was like, this might be bad. And now here in December, I had forgot that happened this year.
Yeah,
it's been so relentless. I'm like, wait, that was this year? Because it feels like 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I guess there have been no big retaliations. At least that I can think of. But I thought that that there's no way Iran would just let they retaliated in certain ways, but I thought this was going to get a lot hotter. That's not to say it's cooled off.
They're way
in
more
any
rational
regard.
than us.
Exactly. The leadership of Iran is smart and rational at least.
Well, they have to be. We can afford to be insane.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember even if Iran came up during any of the presidential debates as an issue or as a potential future issue at all. After January, it really seemed to disappear as something.
Well, now though it's back because they're sending a bunch of fucking planes and boats and shit to the Persian Gulf for something for a defensive maneuver. They're calling it. I bet people are wondering what that's about, but it's definitely happening. So they're reminding us, you guys forgot about Iran. It's back, baby.
I think Pompeo and all those guys, like Bolton, or not Bolton, he's not, but Pompeo and those freaks like Elliot Abrams and the people in charge of Trump's foreign policy, I think are, they can see the exit sign is rapidly approaching, and before the off ramp, I think they're going to try to do as much as possible to provoke a war or provoke something to make sure that the Biden administration has their hands tied as it regards Iran.
They did help Israel assassinate that scientist.
Yeah, there have been all kinds of explosions and fires and scientists turning up dead, and Israel's pretty much bragging about that. And also they can brag because they have their newfound official diplomatic ally, Saudi Arabia, has finally brought peace to the Middle East in the form of, you never thought it would happen. Israel and Saudi Arabia, two of the shittiest countries in the world, joining hands together, officially recognizing that it's time for peace in the Middle East. And by that, I mean just a united access against Iran and Hezbollah, basically.
I assumed they were launching a new energy drink together or something.
Looking forward to Jared Kushner getting that Nobel Peace Prize next year.
Okay, moving on. Here he goes. Duke and Duchess of Sussex step down as senior royals. That is, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle step down from their duties to the royal family and would become financially independent, splitting their time between the UK and North America. So good luck to them on their new reality series, but bad form and bad class for not wearing the poppy and giving the cold shoulder to our beautiful Queen Elizabeth.
Absolute shambles.
Absolute shambles. I mean, they're the only ones who actually did Brexit England. Well, what I'll say about this is apparently, they have been given the absolute high hat by Buckingham Palace, and they have been Queen Elizabeth is apparently furious at them for all the damage that they've done to the, prestige of the royal family. That is way angrier than she got at her son Prince Andrew for appearing in a television interview where he attempted to explain why he spent several weeks at Jeffrey Epstein's New York City apartment, shortly after his release from prison for, I don't know, what is it, statutory rape or whatever. And then in the TV interview, claiming that he couldn't have been with the woman in question because he has a medical condition that makes it impossible for him to sweat.
Yeah, which is the most realistic part of his alibi. Those people are very inbred. I bet they have all kinds of weird medical details about them.
I have to say to Harry and Meghan that they need to watch their backs because they are trying to muscle in on the podcast space. They just released the first episode of their holiday podcast featuring Elton John, James Corden, Deepak Chopra, and Stacey Abrams.
Good Lord.
That sounds good.
I might have to listen to that and report back.
That sounds like a Felix joke, first of all, but I don't think I've ever seen anything with James Corden in it, but I think I hate him. And I have no idea who he. I think
He's vile.
I really
He's a
hate
simpering monstrosity. He is a catastrophe. He's just a gross, shambling, talentless. He is the United Kingdom in human form.
He's the worst. Yeah, he's the worst thing you could be, which is like a soy Anglo.
Yeah.
him. Yes, that is it. That is why I hate him. Because anytime I've ever seen a picture of him, he's making the soy face.
But let's get to the big story of the year. In January, the World Health Organization announces the novel coronavirus. On January 9th, they first announced news about
new virus dropping.
The new virus drop. And by January 21st, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed the United States' first case. That was back on January 21st of this year. I believe we were in Iowa at the time, or New Hampshire. I forget.
It's real early.
We were out. Yeah, we were out on the road, but here we are. It's December 30th now. A full year of this. And as far as America is concerned, it has never been worse. The infection rates are fucking going up, and we are getting to the point that people were fucking terrified would happen of our healthcare system is getting close to breaking at this point. And not only is it still here, not only has it not gotten better, a year later, it's like dramatically worse than it was even at the height of what we thought the worst of it would be in March or April, which is really fucking depressing. Really,
and the cool thing about it is that looking at other countries with far fewer resources, you realize how unnecessary it was. That part rules. And you just know that they're going to be like, look, our hands are tied, and no one exhibited personal responsibility, and that's why you're all sick and dying. And it's like, okay, well, look at these little countries that have done such a better job than we have with no fucking money.
I'm pretty sure the entire nation of Vietnam has had 7 deaths from coronavirus. And I think we're now in this country 1 in 1,000 people have died of coronavirus. Apparently, we're at 300,000 dead people now.
I was thinking about all the stuff we memory hold at the beginning of Corona, in January, February, when we were first learning about this concept. When it was it briefly became a culture war issue, where it's you were racist if you even were afraid of it.
Oh yeah, there were so many cycles.
What was the reasoning behind that?
There were so many.
It was
cycles.
it's just anti-China fear-mongering.
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't really catch on though. I would think that it would have had more Q traction than it did, but I guess it's just not as sexy making a disease in a lab.
It always feels very half-assed and forced whenever Trump calls it the China virus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was from the liberal interventionist side, there was that them doing that very Fareed Zakaria thing where they're oh, this virus is only happening because China is so bad and they're the only state that lies.
Yeah, Biden.
Yeah, or it's so bad in China because authoritarian governments can't respond effectively to big crises.
Yeah.
Looks like you're wrong about that one, Chief.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's somehow they're incredibly authoritarian but have no control over society.
All right. Well, here's the next big news story from this year, which is hilarious to read now and remember that this happened and that literally nobody gives a fuck or remembers this shit at all. Trump was impeached. I mean, you guys remember that?
No, that and Tony Bubalansky have been the biggest stories of this year. Those have both been massive.
Tony Babaduko.
Tony Babadook. I mean, I'd to try to think back to remember all the ins and outs of Trump's impeachment trial is so fucking funny. What a fucking waste of time that was. I didn't even remember that happened until I read that.
The whole time I'm like, okay, go ahead, do it. Who cares? It's not going to do anything. This is a theater.
No, that's why he lost. It was there were 40 million Lev Parnas voters. We all remember the thing that Lev Parnas did, right? When he made the phone call to the DA of Ukraine and was like, don't give Lev Parnas your credit card. And then they did.
Just trying to remember all the names and figures associated with this. It's just the Ukraine call, the perfect phone call. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
The perfect phone call.
Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, Carter Page. No, all of that. All your favorite hits.
I mean, just like the last thing I'll say about Trump's impeachment is that it does play into a prediction I have for 2021 and the coming years, which is that at some point in his first term, Biden will absolutely be impeached by the Republicans for something.
After they sweep Congress in 2022, yes, in the second half of his term, he will be impeached.
It would be funny if he doesn't get impeached for Lev Parnas stuff. You could probably impeach him for China or Ukraine stuff, but it would be funny if they impeached him for getting rid of his motor oil the wrong way, or putting his mouth under the soft serve machine.
I do like the emergence of Ukraine as this perennial thing that eventually every president in the second half of their first term will just be impeached for, quote, doing Ukraine.
Yeah.
And nobody will know quite what it means, but they did some Ukraine and they got to go for it.
I agree with that, though. If you have a phone call with a Ukrainian person, you are not qualified to be president. If you know any of them well enough to know 3 proper Ukrainian nouns, you're unfit for this office.
Moving on to February here. Here's the headline. The Iowa caucus was kind of a meltdown. I mean, you guys remember this, of course. We were there. We saw it all firsthand, right in front of our eyes. And
that makes it sound like a wacky Jerry Lewis movie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was one of our finest moments this year. Is that I think we were basically the only media outlet of any significant note who said in real time as it was happening, this is. Pete Buttigieg did not win the Iowa caucus.
Well, I think I sent this to you, but there was a Politico article on the 12th of December that basically ran down through and was like, oh, yeah, that entire thing was exactly and directly the fault and product of the DNC.
And the shadow app company that they were all fucking investors.
Yeah, that they're all investors in or married to the CEO of. Yes.
Yeah. But that was a proud moment for me this year. Also just being in Iowa and New Hampshire and all the campaigning we did. Let's see here. It was a leap year this year as well. Pandemic triggers global recession. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson diagnosed with COVID-19. NBA suspends season. Olympics are postponed. It's true. Just this year, those early stories, just that we don't remember them at all because it's it happened in a different fucking planet. But the only 2 stories this year are COVID, the pandemic, and the presidential election. Those just really. And neither of those things is resolved in any way, shape, or form. I suppose Joe Biden's going to be the next president, but cold comfort here. There's no resolution to the coronavirus story, that's for sure. And then in April, of course, Sanders drops out of the presidential race. What a bummer. We all know how we feel about that one.
But also, once again, I don't expect him to fucking carry the fucking bobsled.
Well, it's just, we all know how we felt about that. It left us all feeling a bit bereft. But, I think we have to, just be honest about taking that L, and also honest that, absent that, that was our shot probably. And that, failing that, I don't know what the solution is at this point. And I guess the only thing that what mattered about the Bernie Sanders campaign was that it had real stakes, and it was a real movement of millions of people being involved and engaged with something that, maybe looking back on it now seems like a rather naive hope, but there were real stakes involved with it, and the loss of it, still does feel bitter to me.
I will just say on a personal note that is the most in the tent on a political project that I have felt in my life. And I think that was, the power that we were all feeling is everywhere we went, whether people knew us or not, that, we were all working towards something together in a very real way that involved doing things in the world, going places, talking to people. And there was a particular power to that. that I think is important to keep and remember and try to find ways to replicate with the same people that you were with when you were there.
I mean, I just look back on it now as like the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas bit about like the high water mark, and like, you know, if you're in a hotel in Des Moines or Manchester and looking out the window at night, you can maybe still see the high water mark. But yeah, like I don't. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's sad. I will say there was one period when we were doing our little whistle stop thing where I was so sick because of like stress and everything. The stress, though, the cold comfort is that the stress of being close to power or actually having a window of opportunity is no longer there. Now I can relax and do episodes on Wonder Woman until another opportunity presents itself and I'm shitting blood again. But I mean, ultimately, we did what we were supposed to do in the moment, and if you're listening to this, you probably did too. You know, show me someone with no great failures, and I'll show you someone who never had any great ambitions. It sucks. I wish we had won, but I'm a lifer, so you know, next opportunity comes around, I'll be shitting blood again.
And when I think back to that time, and particularly our tour, I mean, I'm more struck by anything was just like the last time we could travel anywhere or see people or have fun. And, you know, like what I do hold very dear is all, you know, all the people we got to meet and party with, and just like who contributed, and just traveling around, just being in Vegas, being in LA, being in San Francisco, Sacramento. I mean, just like seeing all our friends, being on the road. It really was a blast, and you know, and sharing it with my my good friends and co-hosts. So I hold that to me very dearly, especially given how the year turned out. Where, you know, as soon as the tour over, we were basically just locked inside our houses until now, with no no light at the end of the tunnel. So I keep that very close to me. And then as we got into the summer, basically all the news stories became about Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd. Rashard Brooks, the officer who killed Breonna Taylor, being fired, but, you know, eventually I think acquitted of killing her. I mean, that became the news story of the summer, was all of the protests. And I mean, just to go back and think of that, I would just like to share this one video, which, I mean, I don't want to say there's anything funny to come out of this summer's anti-police protests or the police killings of people. But I do cherish this memory of 2020 as probably one of the best things that happened this year. So roll that clip.
So this record is in honor of George Floyd. And I really hope we can see more unity and more peace when already things are so difficult. So shout out to his family.
Wait for the drop.
Even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream.
Yes, that was what's his name? David Guetta. David Guetta. David Guetta. I think Felix described that clip when it first happened as the most European thing ever. And seriously, I will probably remember until the day I die just him saying, "Shout out to his family."
What is a European? It's that. The Martin Luther King speech is part of the song.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my,
that's the European Union's influence.
Yeah. The leather jacket that probably cost like $30,000. Yeah. It's perfect.
And he's like doing this DJ set on top of the fucking Empire State Building, and like this is the response here. You know, I mean, I know it's well-meaning. You know, he wanted to do something nice. He wanted to do something.
You know what? Intentions do matter, and I believe that he had a pure Swedish heart when he did this.
Yeah. Shout out to his family.
Just one more thing about the protests. I mean, not to get too cynical or sincere about it, but being out there in the streets in this protest was another moment in this year where it was like maybe something is happening that we can like all be a part of. And just when we were watching that Dick Durbin clip, it was just feeling very depressed that it seems like at this point one of the largest ramifications from it is Dick Durbin being able to get on the Senate floor and be like, you know what's an issue we really need to take care of is the names of army bases for the sake of racial justice.
Yeah.
And that's why we must pass this defense appropriation bill to get these Confederate names off these bases.
I mean, like looking back at this year, it just does seem like the constant through line is like these big moments or things that feel like, oh, like this is something. And then here on December 30th, looking back at them now, it just really just all seems like nothing happened. It's just more fucking, it's just, there's no resolution. It's just like the grinding fucking on at best.
The way it rolled back.
Yeah.
All over and over and over again, it rolled back.
Going on here, Biden picks his running mate. It's Kamala Harris. Biden gets the nomination. Then there was another police shooting, and then a reaction to the police shooting, and that Kyle Rittenhouse guy killed a bunch of protesters. That's just still going on. Chadwick Boseman died at the age of 43. That was a sad story. I mean, I know we've made fun of Black Panther relentlessly on this show, but that story sucked. I mean, it was just, he was only 43 years old, and you know, despite being in a bad movie, I mean, it seemed like he had a lot more to offer the world, and it was just nobody knew that he had cancer, and that sucked.
Yeah, surprise death is a real bummer, even when it's someone you've never heard of. You're like, oh man, cancer. Forgot about that one.
And also, speaking of dead people, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies at the age of 87 back in September.
Who could have seen that? See, this is what I'm talking about with surprise death. It's just like, we had no idea that she was. I mean, who could have seen it coming? The 87-year-old woman who's almost died 30 times.
And then speaking of
the pure timing of that was just like absolute dark comedy gold. It could not, like, for the stupidest possible outcome of her career and her decisions, and you know, I mean, obviously, the hypocrisy is to be assumed, but the setup to like ram through another Supreme Court justice in the most hilarious ham-handed fashion, just all perfect.
And then moving on from people who did die to people who didn't die, Donald Trump and Melania test positive for COVID. You guys remember that? That was a fun moment. That was so fun.
That was probably the most fun for like 72-hour period.
I couldn't enjoy that one because I'm like, because of my Donald Trump medical theory, where I'm like, I think he's unkillable. The things that kill.
I mean, I didn't really think he was going to die, but it was still hilarious. I mean, like, he goes to the hospital, he waves to the people. They did the weird like green screen video with his mouth moving, and he's calling into Fox News, sounding like he's on a ventilator. It was good.
The thing I enjoyed the most was his incredibly ugly luxury hospital room suite that looked like the den of the richest man in Duluth. That was the part that I liked.
I mean, when that story happened, obviously it was hilarious because like there's one person on the planet who fucking deserves to get COVID. It's Donald Trump and his immediate family and everyone around him. But yeah, just the whole like the White House becoming like a super spreader event. It was very funny, but like once again, we just weren't pessimistic enough because none of those assholes died. None of them even got on a fucking ventilator. And I think, if anything, Trump just getting shot up with like the super soldier serum or whatever probably did more than anything to convince Americans going into this winter that COVID's not that big a deal. Because if that fucking bag of suet can get it and then just like walk out of the hospital fine, then I think it probably did more than anything to convince people that like COVID's not a big deal.
Didn't a Republican politician finally die of this?
Yeah,
no,
he was like 40.
Elect. He was not. He wasn't even sworn in.
He was about to be seated.
You don't get the adrenochrome until you do the Moloch ceremony under the rotunda after you're sworn in. His timing was shitty.
Yeah, but that guy was only 40 though, so that's that's odd considering that Chris Christie and like Rudy Giuliani have it. And, like,
they went through the Moloch ceremony. They get
you're right.
the magic stuff. They admitted it with Christie. They gave him some like experimental cocktail that cost $500,000. You only get that if you have been inducted.
Yeah, if you've been blessed by the owl.
You got the COVID too early.
So moving on, of course, Election Day. We all know how that turned out. Joe Biden, after a little bit of back and forth, was named president-elect. We shall see how that turns out, especially now that Josh Hawley has said that he will bring to the floor of the Senate something about the certification of Joe Biden. He's just showing out for 2024. It means absolutely nothing. And that asshole is going to finish like 6th in the Iowa caucus if he even gets there at all. But yeah, that's how the year ended up. The election happened, and then all of the funny shit that happened after the election, where like basically a third of the country thinks that the election didn't happen, or that they should get a do-over. And I think basically that's where we're left going into January 2021, looking forward to the Biden inauguration and just the near certainty, not the near certainty, the absolute certainty that things will only continue to get worse.
Do you guys imagine that delusion that the election was stolen will have any practical ramifications in the Biden administration, or will it just be people screaming online and in media?
I don't think anyone has any vehicle for any kind of power anyway. So it's just they're doing the same thing that we are. They're screaming online. No one can do anything.
I think the practical ramification will be motivation for the Republican turnout in the midterm elections.
Yeah, they will win back the House for sure. You can already put that one out there.
Well, there we go. I mean, I think that not comprehensively, but does recreate the feeling of living through this year again, which I got to say kind of sucked. So probably should have done that on the show.
Take it out and plug it back in again.
Well, this is our last episode of 2020. I really do wish all of you, our listeners, a better 2021. I mean, in ways both big and small. This year has sucked for everyone, and I know that is a cliche to say, and we make fun of it, and it does seem corny, but to varying degrees, every single person out there has experienced some loss, some depression, it just has gotten through a extraordinarily shitty year, and I do hope that 2021 will be better. We will be here, and my only advice for you in the new year, sincerely, is no matter what happens, if this year has taught us anything, it is that you should hew closely to those in your life who you love and who love you, because none of us can know what will happen. We are, in some degrees, authors of our own future, but no matter what happens, just I think to be with your friends, be with your family, be with your loved ones, your children, your pets, just the people in your life that make your life worth living, that make you a human being, is, I really think, something to be celebrated and something to be cherished, perhaps more dearly than you did before this year happened.
It's the only way to get through it. Yeah, it was a shitty year. New Year's, yes, it is arbitrary. I don't know. But it is important to do these things. Arbitrary rituals are important because having a clear end to something and a clear beginning to something, even if it's kind of bullshit and cosmic and made up, is good for you because it lets you clean out all the shit and at least believe that you're starting from scratch. Obviously you aren't, but sometimes you need to trick yourself into believing that to keep going. I love New Year's. It's my favorite fucking holiday. I'll be missing my homies this New Year's, but it's fucking great, and it gives you an opportunity to be like, maybe this time will be better. As insane as that sounds, and you should let yourself think that. If you're going to keep going, you have to sometimes develop a little bit of learned amnesia where you forget that actually it's not getting better, and it hasn't. And I don't know, fucking enjoy yourself if you possibly can. If you possibly can manage it, it's your duty. Have a good New Year.
And I will say one last thing before we leave you until 2021. Looking back on this year, and particularly the beginning of the year, I do genuinely believe that the time I shared with all of my friends and co-hosts of the Chapo Trap House family, everything we did together this year, whether it was over a Zoom call or whether we were, crammed into a van or a hotel room or just, on the road together, I will, no matter what happens in the future, look back at those times as among the funnest and most genuinely rewarding of my life. And I extend that to you to the extent that we could share it with you, our lovely listeners. I would like to, on behalf of myself and Chapo Trap House, wish you a happy new year and all of my best wishes for a better one.